Steve's developed, as I said last week, from being a strength and conditioning coach through an apprentice coach with UK Athletics to now being one of the performance sprints coaches at the Institute in Loughborough with British Athletics, and amongst other people has coached sort of James DeSaulo to a sub 10-second run this year, and has some really interesting ideas on sort of how to keep athletes healthy and therefore get success from them. So if you'd like to join me in welcoming Steve.
Thanks, Scott, and thanks to everybody in the room for having me down here. As you all know, I probably spent around about 3 or 4 years in Wales before I moved up to Loughborough. And a lot of the things that I learned in Wales, I put into my own coaching and let me sort of develop my own coaching style. So there's a lot of people in this room, Daryl, Dave, you know, Gwen, who I spent a lot of time with and learned a lot from, and sort of helped me sort of develop some of the stuff I'm going to talk about today. I always like to put this up because everybody wants to see it, and it's probably the pinnacle of my coaching career. But the main message I want to get across today is that these sort of things don't happen by accident. There's a lot of good decisions and common sense and learning, you know, and about 8 years of developing, which is me as a coach, and then also James as an athlete. We went in to get that performance, and what I wanted to share with you today is how I've got sort of developed a philosophy which allowed something like that to happen. And I just want to share it with you today, and hopefully some of the stuff that I talk about you guys can put into your own sort of coaching. So, what I want to say first of all is I'm going to mention Dave Lease right from the start. So, around about May sort of time, we were up at the Loughborough International, and James had just run 6:48 indoors, and we were in the middle of the high pack, and it was pretty crowded. And I said to Dave, "Look, I'm not sure if we're going to get him under 10 seconds. I'm not sure how we're going to do that." And I said to Dave, "Have you got any advice for me?" And he said one simple phrase which kind of just changed the way I thought about coaching and kind of just summarized the way that we've been working. And he said, "The one thing you've got to do is coach the athlete and not coach the event." And when he said that, I realized straight away that's the way that we've been working, and that's what we had to do throughout the summer. So I think if you ask me right now how to coach a 100-meter runner, I wouldn't be able to tell you. If you ask me how to coach a 200-meter runner, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. And how to coach a 400-meter runner, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. But what I would be able to tell you is how to coach the athletes that I coach. I coach them as individuals. I coach them as people. I figure them out and understand them. And I don't coach the event. I don't coach them as 100-meter guys. I coach them as their individuals. So that's the biggest thing I want to get across today, that it's individualization. It's about understanding people and not necessarily trying to pigeonhole them into any events, because this guy is very, very special. And if you coached him like a normal 100-meter runner, he wouldn't be alive to tell the tale. And I'm going to go through a couple of stories like that. Leon, who I coached just now, Commonwealth champion, similar story. If you coached him like a traditional 200-meter guy, then he wouldn't live to tell the tale. And it's the same with a couple of stories I'm going to go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through 6 processes that have kind of gone into getting a performance like what James did. Number 1, understand the talent. Number 2, keep the athletes healthy. Number 3, get some consistency in your training. Number 4, refine your training around the individual. Number 5, work on the timing of when the peak performance is going to come out. And number 6, learn from your mistakes, refine your philosophies, and repeat as much as you possibly can. So understand your talent. If you don't know Leon's sitting right here, Commonwealth champ. Put Leon's picture up here for this one because he's a really, really good example of misunderstanding talent, misunderstanding the person. When Leon was 18, he ran 10.3 as an 18-year-old kid with basically no training, no technique, no nothing. And then he spent 10 years in the sport, and the fastest he's run since then is he's gone from 10.3 to running 10.26. So Leon, you know, made in 10 years very little improvement over his 100 meters. Transferred it over into the 200, put a whole bunch of volume, and you know, managed to run decent over the 200. But you know, I think what Leon sort of symbolizes to me is the way that we treat sprinters in this country. We take somebody who's a Ferrari, like Leon is, and we train him like a Ford Focus. And, you know, then when he doesn't produce the performances like a Ferrari should, then we shift them up an event to the 200. And, you know, me and Leon have talked a lot about this, and, you know, he's a kind of athlete who for the first part of his career should have sort of, you know, concentrated on improving his speed abilities, which would have then allowed him to have a much more successful career, especially over the 200. So the thing with very, very talented athletes I've found is that they bring with you certain things which nature has dictated, and you have to be respectful for that. And they bring with you some things which nurture has dictated, and you need to be respectful for that. So, you know, when somebody that's got extreme talent comes in, their whole biology is going to be set up in a way which is going to allow them to run at extremely fast speeds. So their muscle fiber type, the way their levers are set up, you know, James is very, very short body but very, very long legs. Chris Clark, who I'm going to go on to talk about, very, very similar. Their muscle fiber physiology has all been set up in a way which allows them to run extremely, extremely quickly. And then what we tend to do in Britain is when we take that machinery and then we destroy it by throwing way too much training at it. And, you know, what I've sort of come to learn is that athletes who can run sub 10, they simply cannot tolerate the training loads that a 10-free guy can run. So that's the biggest thing I've learned, is that these guys are given God-given talent, and you need to understand that every time they step on the track, they're going to run at speeds which quite simply mean they're not able to run at those speeds the same as somebody who can run 10-3 speed. In terms of nurture, these guys are also blessed as well with, you know, massive amount of ability to learn things. But what I've also learned is that they kind of learn things in a really, really unique way, and it's not easily apparent to start with, you know, that they're kind of making sense, and they're kind of, you're looking at them and they're not kind of able to articulate what it is they're actually saying or doing or any of those things. And I think, you know, like James is the best learner I've ever seen in my life. You know, I always tell people this story, that we went to Gothenburg to run European Indoor Championships, and he learned how to run 60 meters in the space of 24 hours between the first round and the semi-final. And we'd done an indoor season which was not based around winning championships or running fast or any of those things. We used it as a sort of opportunity to teach acceleration mechanics and sort of refine them and put them into the competition environment and see if he could hold on to them. And we got to Gothenburg, got to the championships. He ran against an Italian kid called Michael Toomey in the first round. And this is a little short guy who had extremely good acceleration mechanics but was very, very quick-footed. And James was in the lane next to him. And he finished the race, and he came out to me and he said, I think I want to win. I think I want to win the European Championships. I think I'll win the 60s. And I went, okay. And I've just run against that guy, and I think I figured out how to run 60 meters. And I went, what do you mean? He went, I just listened to the rhythm that he had in his feet. And I was like, okay, okay, great. Yeah, let's see how it is tomorrow. And he went, yeah, I'm going to win. I think I'm going to win. And he slept on it. And he woke up the next day, and he walked in and said, yeah, I'm going to win this. I know how to run 60 meters now. And the semi-final he ran 6:52, and I was like, wow, well, maybe he's going to win this. And then in the final he ran 6:48. But at no point before those 24 hours did he sort of demonstrate any of the abilities I thought that was going to allow him to win the 60 meters. And he didn't know himself, but he learned very, very quickly, and he's exhibited that all throughout his career. I think he does the same in the outdoor season. He always opens up with a very sort of puts his feet in the water, has a little feel. This year you opened up in Geneva, ran 10:14, came back and said, yeah, I think I'm going to run under 10 seconds now. I think I know how to do it. And I was like, okay, you just ran 10:14. I'm not, you know, I didn't want to say or agree with him, but, you know, with these guys, his nervous system is kind of, if you expose it to a little bit of stimulus, you know, he will figure it out. He will do the work. And I guess what I'm saying with this point is, if you've got somebody who's very, very talented, trust in their ability to learn stuff. Don't overcoach them. Don't tell them too much. Don't, like, try and crucify them with their technique. You know, even if it looks like they're not getting it, just let them find it, but let them do it at their own pace and create the environment which allows them to do it. So what I've realized with James is that, you know, he could learn how to run properly, but he needed to have the physical things in place. He needed to be able to have the joint system, which we've now got. He needed to be able to have the postural stuff, which we've now got. He needed to be able to have, you know, the training load taken off him, which we've now got. And as soon as we created those conditions, I didn't have to teach him technique. His body just figured it out. Because the good ones, they've got gifts which are incredible, and they've got motor systems which are incredible. And you know, Leon has just come back from knee surgery, and you know, I've seen this lots and lots and lots. And people go crazy about, you know, big injuries and how the body changes after that. But the really good guys can work around these problems. And James has had a massive ossification of his left hamstring. He's got a mild scoliosis, but his motor system just works around the problem. It can figure it out. And what I've learned is that people sometimes go a little bit crazy about, you know, they'll go to physio and they'll get a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But with these guys, their motor systems are incredible, and they can work around problems, and they can figure it out. And you've got to trust in that a little bit as well. Second stage is, if you've got an athlete that's coming into your training group, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to get them healthy. I worked out today that when he ran that time, we'd had 474 training days of unbroken training. You know, 474 days of us coming to the track and making good decisions. And you know, sometimes we didn't get a lot done on those training days, and sometimes we had to mix and match to get them through, but we kept him going for 474 days, and then he ran 991, and people were surprised, and where did that come from? But it was a big, long, elongated, keeping him healthy, keeping him consistent, and sort of, you know, really working on him, sort of just stringing together a period of time. And you know, when I sort of said in my head, well, how did we actually do that? I've got this model in my head of how we've managed to do it. So I'll just go through that. So if we've got running fast as our goal, I think the only way you can get people to run fast is by writing them a training program which works for them and makes sense for them. And I think people talk about the importance of mechanics, and I agree, very, very important. And people talk about physical preparation and therapy, and that is very, very important. But what I've learned with all the guys I've coached over the last 3 to 4 years is that 100% you need to get this right. If you get this right, it allows that to happen. If you get this right, it allows mechanics to improve, and it allows this stuff to improve. If you don't get this right, then that isn't going to happen. I've never seen a situation where that happens, where somebody improves their mechanics, but the program's still rubbish, yet they run fast. I've never seen a situation where people get extremely strong, and this happens without that happening. So the biggest sort of message I want to get across today is that if you want mechanics to improve, if you want the athlete's conditioning to improve, you need to write a decent program to allow that to happen. And I think people get obsessed with saying that, like, James wasn't running mechanically well before he got hurt. And yeah, that is absolutely accurate. But the reason he wasn't running mechanically well was because the program was overloading him, and it didn't allow him to establish the mechanics which allowed him to run at those speeds and keep healthy. As soon as we got that right, it's allowed us to free this up. Again, with James as an example, like, you know, the guy had 20 hamstring injuries in the space of 4 years, and the response to that was that his hamstrings weren't strong enough. And you know, the guy did eccentric hamstring after eccentric hamstring curl to make his hamstrings really, really strong, yet he still kept pulling his hamstring. It wasn't because his hamstrings were weak or anything like that. It was because the program was just overloading him. So as soon as we got the program right, all this sort of stuff fell into place and allowed them to run fast. So the biggest message I want to get through today is that if you've got an athlete coming into your training group, you need to establish pain-free movement, you need to establish pain-free training, and you need to get them healthy. And the quickest way to do that is to write a program which makes sense for that individual. So every time they come to the training track, you're not overloading them, you're getting them through the training days, and you're trying to build some sort of consistency into the way they're doing things.